And this is where I'm going to have to do some editing. Bon Jovi, Trickster, Dream Theater. Oh my gosh. This is going to be impossible. I have to be over 9. I have to be over 9. I'm going to be over 9. Oh, I'm over 9. This might be the best part of the episode, as me figuring out what in the world I'm going to do. Oh, jeez. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of Rogue Record Music. I'm your host, Rob Myers, and welcome to the show. This is, we'll just start clumsily here. This is a satellite podcast, or an addition to the Right Between the Eyes podcast that I'm a co-host with, along with Nick and Nico Caruso. And this idea kind of came out of a couple different reasons why this show exists. One, I really enjoy talking about music. I have a vast music collection, and we are doing little satellite shows like this in our Kiss podcast, where maybe we'll do an episode about Bon Jovi, or we'll do an episode about Def Leppard, or other various artists from time to time, maybe in 1 or 2 episodes, maybe a year. Now that we've done the podcast for almost 3 years, we'll sprinkle in some other things that we've done. And I've thought about doing a side podcast to talk about the many other artists and bands and just musical interests that I have outside of Right Between the Eyes. But I was like, I don't know if that's something I want to do. And the more I started thinking about it, I thought, well, that might be kind of nice. This year, the three of us had got really busy, and it was hard this summer to try and get the three of us in line to do shows, which is fine. That happens from time to time. But I still had this desire to do podcasts, and I would do we have a YouTube channel along with our normal audio podcast, where maybe I would show a Kiss collection, or I would do something random. If Nick and Nico couldn't be there that episode, I would do a video only episode, since there's an audio only companion episode, where I tried to keep it with the three of us doing it that way. And that was kind of fulfilling that need, but I kept staying in the Kiss realm with it. And then just a couple weeks ago, Nico and the three of us were going to do a show, and at the last minute, Nick had work restraints, and Nico and I decided to do an episode about the band The Warning, and that episode skyrocketed. We've had more views on that episode than we ever had, and that was really fun doing that, and I enjoy doing that with Nick and Nico, and I have their blessings to do this show. But that really started getting the idea of, well, maybe I should do this. This YouTube channel has existed for almost 2 years now, technically, I think, that I kept thinking I was going to do something with it, and I was going to do like a record haul, some of the vinyl you see behind me as I'm backwards here, and just different music collection things that I had filmed, and I thought, I don't know if anybody's going to want to see this, or if anybody's going to want to do it. And the more this summer has gone by, I thought maybe I should really do something. Maybe I should really think about doing another podcast where I get to talk about some of my other favorite bands other than Kiss, which I absolutely love. And some Kiss will find its way to creep in here. And I thought, you know what? I'm just going to dive in, and I'm going to do the podcast. So hello. So for right now, this is existing only on YouTube. My goal is to port it to our Right Between the Eyes podcast feed. I think I can do like a second channel in there. I have to figure some things out, but an audio only version will be coming if you're somebody that listens to audio podcasts. Yeah, there'll be some things you might not be able to see, but maybe you could go back to the video and double dip. A little bit of preliminaries here. There is a Facebook page, so if you would like to follow me, I almost said us, on Facebook at Rogue Record Music, that's going to scroll right through here. At the time of me filming this video, there is not a Twitter handle or an Instagram page, but I would imagine by the time this episode comes out, I will have that. So if there is a Twitter or an X handle, that would be here in this frame. And then an Instagram, if it's here. I'm still working on the Gmail or email account for the podcast. That will be coming, so you can write, and I'll put all our socials, write, leave a comment, and we'll read it, read it on the show. And you could do that down on the Facebook page or the YouTube comments or whatever. This is going to be the introductory episode to who I am, and I couldn't think of a better place to start. Now that the summer, believe it or not, it's so weird to say that it's at the time of filming this, it is July 24th. And I know we say it every time towards the tail end of the summer, like, where did the summer go? We've got one more month of summer, but in some instances, it seems like schools are starting earlier and earlier every year. So somebody could be starting really soon in the month of August. So summer could be winding down. New school years are starting, and if you've clicked on the title of this, you see what the heading is: the 9 albums that got me through high school. And I wanted to make sure it says the music that got me through high school, but it should say the 9 albums that got me through high school. So this is going to be quite a feat. You can see some CDs behind the Seinfeld characters, and I didn't know what else screamed my era of high school other than Seinfeld being a big show that I watched along with friends and all that starting out. But this was also takes me back to a point, something that I loved about music growing up is getting a hold of those cassettes. Remember those? Cassettes, eventually CDs, that you were so eager to talk to your friends or family about, or whatever the case may be, about the thing that you're listening to. Or it in the day and age where we couldn't do this, that thousands of people could see this video potentially. You had your own small little group at school and your own little cliques of the music that you like, and that may be a thing that you bonded over as a friendship, and we became friends because we both like Bon Jovi or whatever the case may be. So since 1989, when I was a freshman in high school, music really started to become a big, important part of my life. And my music collecting really started in 1989. In those 4 years of high school, you're introduced to so much. MTV was now something I could really consume, being a freshman in high school. And of course, through junior high, finally getting cable. I always felt like we were the last family in our little town to get cable, because my dad didn't want to until sports became a thing that he could watch. Then, okay, fine, then we can do cable. But with MTV and eventually VH1, now you're getting to see the artists. You're getting to see what they look like, as opposed to just listening on the radio or seeing the album cover or whatever it might be. So I thought this might be a good introductory into what this podcast, this video channel is going to be. And it won't only just be this, because starting out, it is very hair metal, hard rock, heavy, but also at a certain point, those family members that might be watching are former classmates or best friends or close friends know, like, there was a time you were into this, Rob, in 1989, and we know you liked Michael Jackson, So this list is going to be everything from 1989. I shouldn't say everything. It looks like it's going to start that way. But as a intro to what this podcast is going to be and how deep it's going to go, it's not me just listening to hard rock. So if you don't like hair metal, Poison, Winger, Warrant, Slaughter, this channel isn't for you. This is things that my mother introduced to me when she was cleaning the house: the Ann Murrays, the Neil Sedaka, the Carpenters, all of that, discovering the Beatles for the very first time through my mother. The Monkees will come in here, all of that stuff, some country stuff, some jazz, some rock, some metal, some progressive rock. Any CD or album that I have bought for the last, 30 some odd years is going to be on this channel. So no matter what type of music you might like, I hope that you're going to find something here. Yes, you see some Kiss and some Motley Crue and the drummer from Dream Theater over here and different things. But I think as you will see me go through this CD collection, you're going to see the different kinds of things. And this is only just the tip of the iceberg from, like I said, 1989 till me graduating high school, and by the, spring of 1993. That's so crazy to think that, here we are in 2024 and I graduated all that time ago. So the reason this says the 9, this is a little preamble in here. The reason that I chose the 9, or that we use the 9 as a list, everybody makes a top 10 list, but it goes a little bit deeper. Some of the classic rock records, or even just albums in the 60s and 70s, only had about 9 songs. Early on, it was rare to get an album that had 10, or 10 seemed to be the limit. In the day and age of CDs, once CDs came out, you got up to 70 minutes of music and eventually 80 minutes of music. Artists were putting 12, 13, 14, 15 songs on an album. So on Right Between the Eyes, when we do lists, we thought, well, what if we make our lists 9? And when we review full albums, and that's what I'll also do on here, we're going to look at a lot of albums and we'll go through my high school career, if you will. But when we review an album on Right Between the Eyes, if the album had, let's say, 12 songs on it, we would whittle that album down to 9, the 9 best songs or the 9 strongest songs, to make every album in the Kiss collection 9 songs. So that was kind of our shtick. And then our top 10 list became, why don't we just do 9? So every list that we do or make on Right Between the Eyes and here on Rogue Record Music will always be 9. So that's always the hard thing, coming from the day and age of making, mixtapes and finding out how many songs you could get on. You're meticulous to figure out the math. I should have been better at math, but I was great at math when I had to figure out how many minutes per side I could get a number of songs. You'd sit there and figure all of that up and go, oh, I can only get 9 songs on this side. I can get 12 songs on this side, depending what the song length was. When you start getting into the 60 minutes and 90-minute cassette tapes, you're like, I have so much room. But when you start doing lists and you get everything all set up and you go, this is the perfect list, then you start going, oh, well, what about this thing? And what about that? What about this artist or that football team, or whatever list you were making? Take that perfect list that you had it and say, now that it's perfect, take one away. So the 10-song album becomes a 9-song album. So which song are you going to like, oh, I really like this one, but this one flows so much better than that one. So that's the idea behind this show, that wherever the discussion leads us, by the end of it, there will be some type of a 9 list, especially when we're reviewing albums singularly and then coming up with my own list, my favorite drummers or the favorite pop songs of 1986 or in 1991. These were the 12 number 1 songs for each month, and let's find out what the 9 best, those type of things here. So I know that there could be family, friends watching this where you go, oh, I think I know what's in Rob's CD collection. Some of you will know, some of you won't know, and some of you, or a lot of you, are going to say, really? That's what you were listening to back in 1989, 91, 92, 93, 1990, whatever. So that's what this is going to be. And initially I thought I'll pick 12 albums that were near and dear to me in high school, and then I'll whittle that down to 9. Well, as you can see, I have 3 stacks from my sophomore, my junior, my freshman year, or my senior year, and then the freshman year is right over here. I have lists. So if you pause that, you might be able to see what the lists were. There are 51 albums here. Now, I am not going to talk all 51 albums. This is not an album review. This is more of like the show and tell, where you'd go over to your friend's house circa 1986 and go, look at the cassette tapes I have. Or being that it's my high school years, going to play ball with some of my friends behind the school, and you open up your cassette case and go, okay, what music are we going to play while we're playing baseball, or we're shooting hoops at my parents' house, and you're finding that perfect album. Or when I was delivering newspapers, what cassette tapes am I going to put in my pocket and listen to? Because back in the days from when I grew up, when I was a kid, that it wasn't Spotify. We bought full albums. We listened to full albums from song 1 to song 2, unless you were fancy and had a card deck, or you had a cassette tape that had a special fast forward that figured out where the silence was, or you had that awesome reverse where, you know, if this song ended on side 1, if you hit the reverse button, it started playing side 2, and that was the beginning of the next song, possibly on the other side. That was high technology in 1987, 1989. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to do this live. We'll go through all 51 of these, and I'll explain the qualifier here in a second of how and why I chose what I did. And then I will pick 9 of the 51. This is probably the largest list that I'm going to do. So there'll probably be some editing in here, because if I tend to do this a little bit long at 15 minutes already, there may be some cutting and trimming and splicing going on. But I wanted to kind of get this introduction out to begin with, so you can see and get an idea of what the podcast is going to be, but it might not be a true representation until I start reviewing albums and then going from there. And then I will rank and make lists as I review an album. Where on the list am I ranking these albums? And there are over 2,000 some odd CDs over here, cassettes, and then vinyl in a couple different places here in the house. So my goal is to have like an extensive list that what will be my top 9 albums of all time. Because after 1993, you know, getting into the workforce, I was still buying music. Now I was playing in bands and bars and clubs. So I was learning other music and buying different things. And BMG and Columbia House was starting to, you know, close down. But for a while, you do the whole tape a penny, you know, and get 12 albums free, and you only got to buy 3 over the next couple years. I think I got taken to collections once, but I had 2 other accounts that I don't think I ever paid for. Shh, don't tell mom. Or I never finished buying what was required. But if you see all the music here, you'll know that I bought a lot of music over the time. So this is just more of a conversation, having my friends come over. Let's go through the CDs. Let's pick something out. Let's have a discussion. And let's make a list of, I don't know, how about the 9 albums that got me through high school? From starting, and I had put up initially on the Facebook page from 1998 to 1993, and one of my friends was like, well, gee, Rob, you were in high school 5 years. If you know, you start the school year in one year and you end the school year in the next year. So you kind of start, depending on how school was back then, you either got out the end of May, beginning of June, somewhere around there of 1989, have your summer, come back late August, maybe beginning of September of 89, go on Christmas break, it becomes 1990, and that's where the year ends. So there you go. You know who I'm talking about, because I talked to you in Meyer. There we go. So this is what we're going to do for first episode, kind of an introduction to me. If you haven't seen me since high school, hello. Say something down in the comments. What have you been listening to these last 30 some odd years or whatever? So we're going to go through all these. Like I said, there's 51 albums here, and I'm not going to go through, oh, I bought this with such and such. I'm going to kind of save some of those stories of time frame of when I got the album, who introduced it to me, etc. If it was just MTV and, you know, Poison came on and said, we got a new album coming out, you know, April 5th, you know, whatever it is, then I would buy that album or whatever. So I'll save some of those, but there might be some stories and there might be some head scratchers of going, well, why are you listening to that? Where did that come from? So you'll get some of that, but I know we will be here forever if I go through all 51. But I think it'll be a good show and tell portion. And that's the fun thing of going to someone's house and just going through their CDs or flipping through their vinyl. For anybody that lived in the Ohio area where I'm from, we had Finders, Records, Tapes, and Music in Findlay, Ohio, and in Bowling Green. Both those stores have now since closed, like a lot of record stores have. But there was nothing greater on a Friday night after school to go into a record store or Record Town in the mall, if you remember that, again, in the area where I lived, or whatever a record store you had, to just go through and flip through CDs and cassettes or whatever that might be, or go over to your friend's house and say, oh, I didn't know you had that. Can you make me a mixtape? Can you copy that for me? Before the days of Napster. So the qualifiers for this. So the album had to come out during my time frame in high school from 1989. We're going to call it a rough, I'm looking at my date here, right around June. School years I kind of shift a little bit. We might have got out late May. We may have had to go the first week of June or something like that. So I'm treating it as just a hard line in the sand, June till about August, somewhere around in there, is going to denote the years of school. So probably, like I said, June to May, excuse me. Like June to May is that time frame of where the years are kind of encapsulated. So I might be in 1989 and somebody gives me a cassette tape and the album was released in 1984 or 1988. I did include that in the list, even though I was listening to that album and it was something that I played every day that I could have added in here to shorten the list down. And I'm at 51 albums, already at 21 minutes. We haven't shown a darn thing yet, but we'll get there. I thought I wanted to keep it to the years I was in school. And yes, there's plenty of things. And also I was trying to keep it into albums. There might be bands or artists that I listen to, maybe like a Billy Joel, but I didn't buy a whole album. I might have bought a CD single, a cassette single, or I got it burnt on a cassette tape for me, or I made a mixtape, or I recorded it off of the radio back in those days, hoping the DJ wasn't going to talk through the whole beginning of the song, or it wasn't going to bleed into the next song that I don't want to hear. Things like that, where I might have been listening to Prince and the New Power Generation a lot, but it was only a handful of songs, so that album won't appear in this list because I'm trying to keep it as full albums that I played a lot, that were 9 times out of 10 front to back repeats over and over again. So that's where the list is. Here at 22 minutes and 6 seconds, Rob, let's shut up. Let's get into freshman year 1989 to 1990. Let's go. We're going to start off strong here. And this is where I might lose some people. I hope not. And for the music connoisseurs out there, thank you for staying this long. But this is not the original album cover because I had lost some of the cassettes in a move, or back in the days where you're switching over to CD. Why do I need these cassettes? And my wife would say I'm a hoarder to some extent. I get that honestly from my grandmother. But there were some things that I either lost, got rid of, or I don't need this anymore. I had it on CD, or I went through this phase of going, I'll just keep the best ofs. But I had this album, and now I'm looking at it going, I might want to get some of these that I got rid of for whatever silly reason, or I loaned to a friend in high school, and you still have it. I never got it back because we graduated. I don't think this is one of those. So starting off, here we go. Michael Bolton. Yes, I celebrate his entire catalog. So coming in on June 19th, released June 19th, 1989, Michael Bolton, Soul Provider. So this will be a CD that you'll see again later. And you'll also see that I am somebody, once I fall in love, when I like or love a band, or an artist or whatever, I typically become a long fan. I'm not a fair weather fan. I know we all have those albums and artists that we listen to, and at some point they put out an album like Saint Anger, and you're like, yeah, I think the bandwagon for me stopped here, and that's where I got off. So hopefully I'll also put up images of the album covers if I don't have it, or if the glare is wrong and you can't see it. We'll see what happens in post. But again, I don't want to belabor too long in talking about everything, but there is a Kiss connection to Michael Bolton. Really quick, Michael Bolton was in a band called Blackjack with Bruce Kulick of Kiss. Bruce Kulick did not appear on the Soul Provider album, but a few previous Michael Bolton albums, when he was still kind of a rocker before he got into a crooner, did feature One Day future Kiss guitarist Bruce Kulick. So in 1989, Bruce had already been in Kiss since 1984, so he would not appear on the Michael Bolton album. But I think a couple tracks on this best of that came out in 1995, which is past my high school years, but ironically, Bruce Kulick does appear on this. So starting off strong, Michael Bolton. I was a huge Michael Bolton fan. I feel like the movie Office Space by saying that. I am. And that was the other thing about doing this. There are things that I was like, well, I'm not going to tell my rock and metal friends that I like this. And I'm not going to tell the people in show choir that I like Anthrax because, oh my gosh, it's all pop and show tunes and Boys to Men and, you know, all that stuff. I was a chameleon. I mixed very well in the different groups and circles, and I got to like and love a lot of music because a lot of my classmates out there. So thank you for broadening my horizons. So again, I'm going to try and keep this going quick here. I think it's probably safe to say that as much as I celebrate his entire catalog, Michael Bolton is probably not going to make it to the 9, but I was a pretty big Michael Bolton fan. I have a few albums over there to testify to that. And there will be a Michael Bolton episode, be forewarned, somewhere down the line, but not right away. 1989 probably had one of the biggest movies of all time. We still talk about it. Just a year or so ago, he reprised his role as Batman. Yes, all of us were required watching Batman 89. We all had a version of this because Bat Dance was everywhere. I'm also holding up this. This is the time I also started finding album scores. And so I'm kind of pairing these together because in 89, I probably drove my parents nuts by listening to Prince quite a bit. Even though the songs are inspired by the film, I think only Scandalous and Trust, Party Man. There's quite a few that appear in here. But like I said, I'm not going to go through everything. But Batman, 1989. And that came out June 20th, by the way. Coming in on release on August 28th, 1989. Motley Crue's Dr. Feelgood. I do not have my copy of Motley Crue Dr. Feelgood. This is Motley Crue's Music to Crash Your Car to Volume 1. So it goes from the very first Motley Crue album up until Dr. Feelgood, and then there's a second edition. They never did a third. So this will come back around. I don't know how, if you weren't listening to rock and metal and weren't seeing Kickstart My Heart, and especially seeing Home Sweet Home on MTV a million times over, Without You, Dr. Feelgood, seeing that first video come out. Again, I'm probably getting long-winded here already, but you couldn't help but be a Motley Crue fan in 1989. Another favorite of mine coming in September 12th, 1989. Aerosmith, Pump, Janie's Got a Gun, Love in an Elevator, The Other Side. A very, very strong album. It'd be the album before this that really made me an Aerosmith fan, being Permanent Vacation. But I felt like, as much as I like Ragdoll and those songs, this becomes my era of Aerosmith moving forward. Coming in at September 19th, Janet Jackson, Rhythm Nation, 1814. I think I've probably alluded to liking Michael Jackson. It was very easy to like Janet Jackson at the same time. And Janet probably more so than Michael, planned her albums to not coincide at the exact same time that both Michael and Janet were never on stage. It was touring at the same time, and people were like, are they the same person? We're not going to get into that discussion. But for a long time, I was a closet Janet Jackson fan. Like, I can't tell people I like Janet Jackson. Heck yeah, Janet Jackson, Michael, the whole Jackson family. So this was an album I don't have anymore. I do have it burnt and broken. That would be Britney Fox, Boys in Heat. So I must have borrowed this from somebody, their CD, could be my friend Ben, if he has this, or somebody, and made a copy of Boys in Heat. Might have even been my friend Roger that may have had this, because all I have it is on cassette, and I actually have the cassette. It's off the side of the room, but CD, I don't have it, so I don't have the case or whatever. So I was using this. If you didn't know who Britney Fox was, it's probably right towards, they were like your lower tier in the hair metal spectrum. You had your Poison, Winger, Warrant, Slaughter, all of that. Then you start getting down, somebody's going to boo me for this, probably into your Dawkins and Rats and somewhere around in there. Then you get into your Britney Fox territory. I loved Britney Fox, still do. And you'll see Britney Fox make an appearance later again. This album I didn't realize at the time. I do obviously now, but coming in on October 13th, 1989, this is a big time for me. My best friend and I would not discover this gentleman and the next band until December of 89, but released is Ace Frehley's Trouble Walking, former Kiss guitarist and former drummer Peter Criss actually appears on this album. And I remember Ben playing a song off of this over a corded phone and saying, I picked up the new Ace Frehley album, and you're not going to believe what song is on here. So Kiss and Ace Frehley both recorded the same song at the exact same time. And I think there were 4 or 5 different versions of it, and that was Hide Your Heart. So there's Trouble Walking. And then the album that follows right after that, October 17th, 1989, that is Kiss Hot in the Shade, my very first Kiss album, autographed by previously said Bruce Kulick here from a Kiss convention. This is an album that would change my life. All of the Kiss paraphernalia up here is thanks in part to this album. This is one of my favorite Kiss albums. Is it my favorite Kiss album? Is it going to make it to the 9? We'll see in just a little bit. Coming out of the shadows, ironically, of Kiss is another band. And now that we are into the new year, this is January 23rd of 1990. 90, I almost said 99. Of 1990. Having been in a band with another former Kiss guitarist, Vinnie Vincent, Mark Slaughter, and Dana Strum. I'm talking about the band Slaughter. They are up all night and they will sleep all day and they will fly to the angels. This was a big album for me coming into that new year, coming back from Christmas vacation and New Year's Day, and shortly getting this album after its release. Again, I had a lot of these on cassette at some point, but as you can see, BMG was very, very good to me. Okay, starting the sophomore year, this is from 1990 to 1991, obviously, and we're going to start with June 20th, 1990. And this is one that, for some of you might know me personally now, and a very select few knew then, that I was getting into Christian rock and Christian metal at the time, very late, very early into 1990s. And I can remember this vividly. This is one little story I'll tell. We went to the Ohio State Fair in 1990 to go see this band. We were going to see a Christian rock band. And I remember our youth leader was trying to play this music to get us excited about it. And a couple friends that, the group of us, we were all walking around. I was trying to purposely not go to this because I didn't need to see or hear some Christian artist try and sing songs about Jesus to me, because what I had known at that time wasn't sitting really favorable with me of what Christian music was like. It seemed very, very cheesy, not real, something that I'm going to get behind. Like, I'm listening to Kiss, and I'm listening to Janet Jackson, I'm listening to Motley Crue, for crying out loud. I was introduced, and our youth leader found us. We took the wrong turn at the state fair, got up by the grandstands, and she was out there waiting for us because she was counting all of us. And there are three of us that weren't there. And I remember she's going, we paid for the tickets. You guys are coming in. You can't be wandering around the fair. And we went and saw Petra. This is another one of those albums that really changed my life, that brought Christian music to a spot where I said, that's cool. That's awesome. There were drum solos, there were guitars, and the lyrics spoke to me in a way that, I don't know, just hit and resonated with me, that I felt that I was being spoken with, not spoken at or to or about. And I remember going to the merch table, trying to scrounge up enough. I can remember, it could have been $7 for all I remember, but saving the money that mom and dad had given me, that thank goodness I didn't blow it all, that I bought a cassette tape at the merch store. And I remember my good friend Ben saying, see, I told you this was going to be pretty cool. And we became lifelong Petra fans at the Ohio State Fair. So this album holds a special place. Is it in the 9? We'll see. I can remember, at least I think I'm remembering and not getting two things mixed up, but I can remember being in Ben's parents' car, van, or whatever, but him, I think, buying this. I think he bought it at Finders. I recently got it anywhere. I remember being in the van and him having to play the first song from this album. It is Poison, June 21st, 1990. Flesh and Blood, Unskinny Bop, and Something to Believe in. So many good songs off of this. Great, great memories with this one. I can remember watching MTV, seeing this video for the very first time. It is Matthew and Gunnar Nelson, the Nelson twins. You want to talk about an album that I played and played and played. This has a high contention for being the 9 albums that got me through high school. This would also, spoiler alert, would lead to the first rock concert. The first concert I ever saw was the Monkees, if that tells you also where this podcast is eventually going to go. But that's a story for another time. The Monkees aren't here because they had an album that was before I was in high school, but I was listening to the Monkees in high school. But this album, this Lynch Mob and Cinderella would be the first official rock concert. And I think Ben and I would be lying. Yes, we were there to see Cinderella, but we were really excited to see Nelson. And knowing where this new decade started, and the contrast of what Nelson brought in June of 1990 and where the 90s are eventually going to go is completely different. And we'll see that materialize here in the list. All right, coming in on July 24th, 1990, Winger in the Heart of the Young. And I got a nice little crack through here, and you can see my Finders, tapes and CDs. It was a budget used for whatever reason. Because I had it on cassette, and then I wanted to get it, and I found a used copy, and I cracked it this all not that long ago. But I kept the Finders sticker here after the store closed. I just couldn't bring myself to replace this cover because of the Finders sticker. But huge Winger fan, and unfortunately Beavis and Butthead did not treat Winger well. So when you say Winger, people are like, listen to Winger now. And yes, they still have threads of who and what they are, and I'm actually going to be seeing Winger. I can't wait. This was a bucket list band that I was like, I never got to see in their prime, and in the latter part of August, I will finally get to see Winger. So I am super excited. In the Heart of the Young had some great songs. More to talk about that later, but we'll move on. August 7th, 1990 brings us Extreme, the mammoth monster hits. The album Porno Graffiti may have turned off some parents and going, oh, what are my kids listening to? Not what you thought it might have been. But this is where the song More Than Words comes from. This is where they might have gotten pigeonholed as a ballad type of a band. A lot of people flocked to Extreme because of that song and Wholehearted that they released later on. But that's really not who Extreme is. And Extreme last year, actually earlier this year, no, it was last year, in 23, put out a fantastic album called Extreme 6. And it's their 6th studio album. So they did take quite a bit of a break there, as Gary Cherone would go on to sing for Van Halen after Sammy Hagar left. So that shows you. And then the guitar player, Nuno Betancourt, before Extreme reunited recently, he was playing with Rihanna. So there's a little bit of history of Extreme. A fantastic album. So this is fun. I can remember being in choir. This is August 30th. And I remember my best friend Ben brought this cassette tape in. And I had a cassette tape earlier from somebody else that'll fit in here. But I didn't really listen to it because I didn't know exactly what I was getting into because of the person that made me the mixtape. I thought, oh my gosh, is this devil music or whatever? Far from it. Queensryche, Empire. I remember Ben saying he heard the song Best I Can on the radio, or probably Empire first. And this started opening the door to where I would start to find progressive rock and what rock could be with dueling guitar solos. Silent Lucidity was the biggest song off of the album at this time, and plus many other great songs off this album. A great, great album. Getting into more of the Christian rock element, but this album is not that, but it was a big, big deal for me. This band is still a big deal today, and I'm trying to keep this eventual 9 list when we get there, of where my head was back in 1989 through 1993. But Stryper put out more of a contemporary album called Against the Law to try and bring in some non-Christians into, like, hey, you like this music, and it's more positive, upbeat, you know, like Waterboy, you can do it, and we'll fight the hell out of you, and, you know, Against the Law, and Two-Time Woman, and, you know, some partier type songs. And this is where Michael Sweet said they started to stray a little bit and would eventually break up shortly after this album. But I got into Stryper big time and went through the back catalog and became a real fast Stryper fan, and this is still one of my favorite albums by the band. You can't go into the 90s and not hit September 11th. It's amazing when you say that date anymore, what that brings back in. But September 11th, 1990, Dirty, Rotten, Filthy, Warrant, Cherry Pie, as the song Cherry Pie starts out, with the parental advisory. So that means Ode to Tipper Gore is on here. So this would be one that I would not be playing on my stereo with mom and dad. This was one that I looked for to make sure I got the parental advisory, because there was a bonus track, and what could it possibly be? It is nothing but 1 minute and 51 seconds of the F word, as she was trying to have him put censoring music. And I get it, but in 1990, I don't need my music censored. I just have to make sure mom and dad can't hear it, or I've got the headphones in. Also coming in 1990, September 11th, released the same day. This would be the second CD I ever bought, and the first CD is around the corner. It is the band Firehouse, a band I never got to see. Hopefully this year, maybe November, I'll get to see. We just lost the lead vocalist, CJ Snare, this year. And keeping in with the Stryper connection, Perry Richardson, former bassist of Firehouse, now is the bass player in Stryper. So that was kind of cool. Gave his life to Christ and is now playing in Stryper. But what an amazing, great band. What a great first album by the band. So strong. And being that this was the second CD I ever bought, I played this over and over and over and over again. It would last all the way through the 90s. Coming in November 20th, 1990, this would be the first rock concert that I alluded to that I saw. It was Cinderella, Heartbreak Station. Being a fan of Cinderella for quite some time now, getting to see the band live, and again, much like some other bands in the 90s, they wouldn't last too much longer. They would release one more full album after this and a couple live albums, and then would just relegate themselves to touring. And now Tom Kiefer is a solo artist, referred to himself as Tom Kiefer of Cinderella. So he's still playing Cinderella music along with his own. Blew out some vocal cords. Again, I'm taking a little too long here, but let's move on. Coming in, Chicago 21, huge Chicago fan. This comes in on January 29th, 1991. And again, I could talk more about it. Why I like Chicago? Because the girls like Chicago. And sometimes it's a great music to put in that setting and put in that mood. You Come to My Senses is one of my favorite songs. I have very special memories connected to the song and the girl that I would be dating. Not at this time, not until my senior year of high school, but this kind of became an album of ours that I would go back to quite a bit. Not much more here in my sophomore, I think I said junior high at one point. My sophomore year of high school, we have Mr. Biggs, Lean Into It, on March 26, 1991. And I just recently bought Mr. Biggs' brand new album 2 weeks ago. Fantastic album. But that's not here. That's 2024. This is 1991. And I'm the one who wants to be with you. April 2nd, 1990. The very first CD I ever bought. I love this album. I now have it on cassette, CD, and recently just bought it on vinyl a year ago. It is White Lion's Main Attraction. It being not the White Albums that some people are familiar with, but I really believe this is the best White Lion out of all of them. Vito Bratta, the guitar player, would say so. Just an amazing, amazing album. And wrapping up my sophomore year, we started in 1989 with it. This is the second appearance of this album, but it is Time, Love, and Tenderness, April 29th, 1991. Michael Bolton. I don't know what else to say. I'm a Michael Bolton fan. I celebrate his entire catalog. Steel bars wrapped around this heart of mine. Okay, there we go. All right, moving into my junior year. This album, I can't find much information about it. I know I bought it on release day or really close to it, but it's only listed on Wikipedia and any other publication that I looked at. If I had my Metal Edge magazines from back in the day, I probably could have told you exactly when this was released because they were really good about telling you release dates. But it is Black Eyed Susan, former lead singer of Britney Fox, I talked about right here, Dizzy Dean Davidson, Electric Rattlebone. So I just have it listed as 1991. So this could have been in I'm thinking it's more in the summer of when I discovered this, as opposed to being in my sophomore year, since Britney Fox was right there. And I think they had broken up shortly after that, or at least Dizzy had left the band. So great, great album. I can't wait to talk about this fully on the podcast at some point. All right. Coming in June 17th, 1991, it just got a big vinyl release. It had a box set release. Finally, he is out on tour celebrating all things Van Halen right now. Sammy Hagar. I'm talking about For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge. Oh my gosh, the mileage I got with this CD. My favorite Van Halen album. My favorite lineup of Van Halen. Van Halen, Gary Sharon might be a very close second. Sorry, David Lee Roth fans. But what a great, great album. As much as people want to go to 1984, the first Van Halen album, this is that album for the Hagar era fans. I love it. Right. August 12th, 1991, I saw a video on Headbangers Ball that I had a good friend in Alan Nepper that was trying to get me to like this band. I kept trying to find every single way to tell him we probably shouldn't like this band. And then Enter Sandman came out. That is the Black Album from Metallica. This is like the joke in Wayne's World, where this came with boxes of Tide, referring to Frampton's Come Alive album. Anybody that was listening to rock and roll, heavy metal, hard rock at the time, have the Black Album. Listen to it, bought it, loved it, own it. Again, I don't have my original copy anymore. This is the 30th anniversary of the album, but the Black Album. These two albums I am pairing together. because the lead singer said we were going to do a double album, but it might be a little bit more expensive. And if somebody says, oh, I could buy the Black album because this one is a double album, we'll just break it up into 2 albums. But like Kiss will release the album on the same day like they did with their 4 solo albums. I am talking about the masterpiece, and I am saying that as a Guns N' Roses fan, of Use Your Illusions 1 and 2, released September 17th, 1991. My original cassettes here. And I have my CDs. I love both of these albums. To me, they are one album as probably intended, but I actually bought Use Your Illusion 2 first because of You Could Be Mine. I love this album. I love this album. Now, this is crazy. Keep this date in mind here. September 23rd, 1991. This is the seismic shift that the world is getting ready to see. Not this, but you'll get it in a minute. So back to Motley Crue, Volume 1, Music to Crash Your Car 2. I'm talking about Decade of Decadence, the greatest hits for Motley Crue. Had Primal Scream, a reworking of the 1991 version of Home Sweet Home, basically a best of with 3 new tracks. And it would be the last album to feature Vince Neil on Motley Crue in another 3, almost 4 years before Motley Crue would put a new album out with a new singer in John Corabi. Although Vince Neil would put out an album in, I believe, here in the 90s, but and when I was in high school, I think 92, 93 maybe, but it doesn't make this list. But Motley Crue. The seismic shift. The day after, September 24th, 1991. This is not on my list because I kind of rebelled against it. Nirvana. Doing it very careful as to not get censored. This album is not on my list, but does a seismic shift. So if you remember Nelson that I showed way back earlier, this is an album that is going to turn my hair metal world upside down, and we're going to start wearing flannel very, very quickly. Coming in October 29th, Brittany Fox. So we saw Black Eyed Susan. This is Brittany Fox with a new lead singer, Tommy Paris. Huge deal, huge album for me. Pay attention to this album. I don't have the date here, and I'm not entirely sure. I think it's the same thing, not knowing what the release date was. But going back to Petra here, this is November 1991. I think it was in the early part I would see Petra again, and I would see Petra for the next few tours. This was a big deal. Beyond Belief was something special, but Unseen Power got a lot of love. VHS, concert, Ben and I went to the show. Absolutely fantastic. Going to Queensryche, November 1st, 1991. This is Operation Live Crime. This is after the successful Empires tour, where they went back to Operation Mindcrime and played the Mindcrime album from front to back. And I said there was someone that gave me a Queensryche album ahead of time. I had Operation Mindcrime. Once I realized that I liked Queensryche, I went back and listened to Operation Mindcrime, so I can get away by putting Operation Mindcrime on here, but it's the live version. It's just as good as a studio version. November 12th, 1991. This would be the last album to feature CeCe DeVille with Poison. So things have started to fracture here. They put out this double live album. Really cool. Really cool. Swallow This Live. November 26th, 1991 was a big deal for all of us Michael Jackson fans. Dangerous would be released. The video premiered on MTV with a lot of backlash from parents. It was getting censored and all that stuff. But you could not be on this planet and not acknowledge, or be aware of Michael Jackson, regardless of where you are in the world or what you think about whatever. Huge deal. If anybody that knew me knew I was a huge Michael Jackson fan. Went to the movies February 18th. The day that the movie came out, the day the soundtrack came out, we went to the movie, went to the record store, and it was party time. Excellent. Wayne's World. The songs from this movie, I got introduced to Queen because of this. I heard Dreamweaver. Cinderella had a song called Hot and Bothered. It would be their last album with their drummer Fred Curry at the time, before he would go to Arcade. Rhino Bucket. Black Sabbath. I would really hear Black Sabbath for the first time on this. I believe it was the Tony Martin era, if I remember correctly. But the hours spent with Wayne's World and quoting this movie still to this day. Shaw, monkeys might fly out of my butt. And a little side note about Wayne's World. That was 8 days after my 18th birthday. So that was kind of cool that this movie came out, and Sidetrack kind of helped celebrate my 18th birthday. I think that was something I wanted to do. Like, hey, this movie's coming out really close to my birthday. So a group of us went, and I think I saw this movie four times in the theater. March 31st, 1992, a big album for me. It is Def Leppard's Adrenalize. Whereas Hysteria was in my junior high era, Adrenalize is an album that is still to this day my favorite Def Leppard album. Man, every single song is just note perfect. I love this album. Again, this may be something to pay attention to for the 9. Rounding out the last few here from my junior year of high school, another huge, big album. House of Lords, Demon Down, April 7th, 1992. If you don't know who House of Lords are, they were under Gene Simmons's Money. I think they were called Moneybag. It was just Gene Simmons Records at the time. Tommy Aldridge, who played in Whitesnake, is on drums on this. A highly underrated band in a hard to find album. It's not even on Spotify, and I don't even think it is on iTunes. I highly recommend this album. I cannot recommend this album enough. April 21st, 1992 brings us the second album by Slaughter, and if I'm being honest, as much as I love the first album, I love The Wildlife. Another great album. And we're starting to get into that hair metal phase, hard rock phase that is starting to waver in popularity due to all the grunge that's coming out. But if that wasn't enough for me, on May 5th, 1992, I would find John Cicada. Again, this is some people going, wow, we've had so much rock and hard rock stuff. Yeah, but this was a big deal for me. He wrote for Gloria Estefan. The Miami Sound Machine, broke out on his own. And I think I bought 5 of his albums all in a row. I really liked the soft pop music of the day. So John Cicada. If you're a Kiss fan, if you know me, and you were around during this time, you should know what this album is. On May 19th, 1992. That's Why You're Feeling So Unholy. Begged mom and dad back in 1989 to go see Kiss, and mom was like, there is no way you're going as a freshman to a rock concert with a bunch of people from high school that you don't know, and more importantly, I don't know. So it wasn't until my senior year, which this is in May, so this album would come out, Kiss would not tour till the fall of 1992. But Revenge is released. It is my favorite Kiss album of all time. I am burying the lead right now. This is in the 9. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. So I'm setting it over here. All right, we've arrived at my senior year. Hopefully you've stuck around this long. We still got the 9 to do, so hopefully I can speed this up a little bit. But starting off, June 16th, 1992, Firehouse is back again with Hold Your Fire. As much as I love the first album, I think I like this one even more. Just what a great record. Had When I Look Into Your Eyes on as the big ballad like Love of a Lifetime part 2, if you will, from the first album. But so many great songs. Reach for the Sky, got a great cowbell in it. Love this album. An album that changed my world musically of what I still like and love today. And I was introduced to this band by taping MTV Headbangers Ball, and I went, wow, that's different. It sounded like an atypical metal song of the day. Some cool guitar solos, some jammy sections that I didn't quite understand. Then I bought this album, coming out on July 7th, 1992, an album that would change my world, Dream Theater, Images and Words. This is like putting Journey, Pink Floyd, Metallica, Rush, I don't know what all, into a blender, and comes out this band with soaring vocals, I didn't know what time signatures were, but changing time signatures and tempos and phrasing and which instruments were leading blew my mind. They are getting ready to celebrate their 40th anniversary this year. And this is their second album. And Pull Me Under, they released a greatest hits album probably 17 or 18 years ago called Greatest Hit and 21 Other Songs. There are only 8 songs on this album. The average song length is anywhere from 7 to 9 minutes. They put out an album in 2002 called 6 Degrees of Inner Turbulence. Only 6 songs on the album. It's a double album. And the 6th song is 42 minutes long. Unbelievable. I love this band. I'd be crazy to tell you this isn't going to appear on the 9. A band I got into because I thought, well, that's cool. They're like Metallica, not knowing the history of it. Coming in on July 14th, 1992. And again, I did the same thing with like the Michael Bolton stuff. I got rid of some CDs, kind of pared some stuff down. Megadeth. So here's the mix CD I made called Hanger to Hanger, from Hanger 18 all the way down to, I can't remember what the last one was. They had an album called, or had Return to the Hanger on it. Anyway, I got rid of some other metal CDs that I wasn't playing quite a bit, but at the time, Countdown for Extinction was released on July 14th, and I played Countdown Extinction quite a bit, which when I graduated high school, I started playing in some of my first bands, and we were playing some Megadeth stuff. So, Megadeth. August 25th, 1992, I cannot wait for this album because he was in New Edition at one point. He was trying to not be cruel, was telling somebody don't be cruel with him, and had every little step. Bobby Brown's Bobby album. I went to the local hairdresser and wanted the hairdresser to like fry my hair so I could get that wave like Bobby Brown. And she said, "You're not that ethnicity. I will ruin your hair." And now, having any, what would have been the loss? She goes, "You're going to lose your hair." And I'm like, "I'm going to lose it anyway." Didn't do it. But love Bobby Brown, Humping Around. This was an album I was so crazy about, but I didn't play through it as much as I thought I would after my senior year, but I did play this quite a bit, Bobby Brown. Released September 14th, 1992. Extreme, 3 sides to every story. If you were Extreme fan and you were wanting more of Wholehearted, they gave you something a little bit different and an album that they were really trying to make it feel like it had 3 sides. And I think they did that very well. Yours, Mine, and the Truth. Rest in Peace was their big song off this. I got to see them on tour with a band that it's going to be talked about here in just a little bit. Love this album. Played it a lot. October 13th, 1992. My best friend, Ben, was really big on this band's first album. Songs like Give It To Me Good. And for whatever reason, I wasn't latching on until this album, Here, was released. I, again, don't want to bury a lead. I don't know how many of these I've said. I absolutely love this album. They opened up for Kiss on the Revenge Tour in November of this year. They were the opening act next to Great White and then Kiss. We both went really nuts over Trickster. And I went back and I had to get their first album. They had a couple since this, but this is perfection. November 3rd, 1992. We were just coming in to the end of the 1992 part of the year of my senior year, knowing that 1993 is right around the corner and growing up is going to happen, but not until Bon Jovi, Keep the Faith, comes out. And I don't know what to say about this album. Much like with Kiss, the memories that I have associated with this album between friends and girlfriend at the time of my senior year. I'm dating someone. The song Bed of Roses, I Believe. We went and saw this tour together with a couple other friends. Extreme opened up that show, so that was really big. That I was with my high school girlfriend at a concert. One of our songs came on. It was just talk about that perfect time to where I love Slippery When Wet. I love New Jersey, But this, I felt like this is my Bon Jovi. I'm in high school when a great Bon Jovi album is coming on, and Bon Jovi was back on the top of the charts and was on the Grammys that year, was on the American Music Awards. So when all this grunge stuff is going on, Bon Jovi is still riding high on the charts, and what a fan-friggin-tastic album. We're coming close to the end here, folks. On February 8th, 1993, Poison releases a brand new album with a brand new lead guitarist in Richie Kotzen. Again, we are now knee-deep in grunge territory. This album kind of gets lost. It is critically well received, and they were on the Arsenio Hall show doing the song Stand, which was the big hit off this album, but grunge just kind of bulldozes everybody. You go back and listen to this album now, knowing that Richie Kotzen has played with Mr. Big. He's had a very successful solo career after some shenanigans on a tour bus with the drummer's girlfriend at the time, but neither here nor there. What a great album. Rounding out the last three here, released on February 23rd, 1993, Van Halen, Right Here, Right Now. So as much as I felt like For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge was in my sophomore, junior kind of a year, my senior year, to have another Van Halen album and it to be a live Van Halen album, and to hear Sammy Hagar sing some of the classic David Lee Roth songs for the first time was a great, wonderful start. Start of the end of my senior year, so this album holds a special place. And to know that Sammy Hagar's out there celebrating Van Halen and just celebrating it up in honor of Eddie Van Halen is just a great thing that's happening right now. But what a brilliant album. All right, we're down to the final two. I bought this one on my show choir trip in Nashville. We stopped at a record store, and I had to pick this up on April 20th. It was released, and when I leaned over back to speak to my friend Dennis and said, Aerosmith has a brand new album out. So we found a record store in Nashville, asked our show choir director, it was just really close to where we were staying, and we went into the Virgin Megastore as a whole entire group, and I picked up Aerosmith, Get a Grip. You know, the time frame in your senior years really starts to get compressed. So the longevity that some of these other albums had from my freshman year to my senior year, some of these that I played long after my senior year, I only had a few months with this album, but what a fun album, and they released a crap ton of songs from this album. And if it wasn't fitting enough, two albums were released on the same day. We've seen her once already, and I'll try and show a censored version of this, but you probably kind of saw a little bit of there. This is the Janet Jackson album. There's the whole thing. She's covering things up. So this is the Janet album, and I did have the actual CD. For some reason, I wanted the book, and I wanted to have the CD so it fits in the CD holder. And no, I didn't buy it just because of the artwork. There was bonus stuff. At this point, if I could get an album that had bonus track, and Finders had a really good box set collection and stuff that was imported, so different mixes and a song that doesn't appear on the album. This was released May 18th, 1993, Janet Jackson. And to bring everything home for me, being a Kiss fan, to commemorate me seeing Kiss live November 27th, 1992 with my best friend Ben, the following May 18th, 1993, the last album I would buy my senior year of high school, Kiss Alive 3. It was basically the Revenge tour encapsulated in all of its glory, and they finally had done a live album since 1977's Alive 2. Okay, now comes the hard part. I went through all that to basically show you a music collection, didn't do a whole lot of talking on everything, but the big thing is to put together the 9 from 51 of these that we just ran through. 51 tangent little stories, the 9 albums that made me who I am, that got me through high school. How do you boil down 4 years and 51 albums? And these are just albums that I just played over and over again, like I said at the beginning of the show, that the journeys and trips and stories that I will tell those stories when I review each of these albums individually, and plus the whole slew of other music that I hope to introduce you to on the podcast. But how do you say what 9? So these are the deserted island. If I'm going to a deserted island and Rob says we can bring 9 of these things, what are the 9 albums? What are your 9? Put them down in the comments below, the 9 albums that got you through high school, the albums that you leaned on, that got you through the happy times, the good times, celebrating with friends. If you had a loss of a loved one, what albums did you go to? The albums where you broke up with a girlfriend. Thankfully, I didn't have to break up with a girlfriend through high school. That wouldn't be till a year later, boo-hoo. But hey, I wouldn't be where I am if I had stayed with her. But the things that you don't know and the courses that change through your life, man, if I had a crystal ball to say, you're going to be just fine. But what are those 9? Oh, so this is where some editing is going to have to be done. I don't know if there's going to be an outtake reel of me pouring over the albums, and then I'm going to put them in order. So we know that Kiss is going to go on there. Okay, let's count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cassette tape, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, almost 20 albums if I count Guns N' Roses in here. How are you going to make 9? 9. Ferris Bueller 9 times. Dream Theater, one of my second favorite band in the world after Kiss, really wouldn't become a focal point until 1994 when they released the Awake album. As I was still trying to figure out who and what Dream Theater is, I think I can put this off to the side. Kiss has to go. Poison, I so bad want to keep it because of now the reverence for it. We're talking towards the tail end. Where did that come in? Was that in my senior year? That had to be my senior year. Yeah, we're talking February of 1993. Kiss Alive 3 doesn't make that. It didn't pull me through. Bon Jovi, that has to stay. As much as I love Firehouse, and I played this a lot, that's got to go. I'm a huge Mr. Big fan. But again, it wouldn't be till their next album that really pulls me. Okay. That's the qualifier. Wayne's World. It's a soundtrack. So many great songs. It's not a full album by any one artist. It's a soundtrack. I played it a lot. Not a full album. Stryper. Where are we at here? Stryper and Nelson. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Guns N' Roses getting counted as 1. That's my rule. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 5. I've got to lose 5. I got to lose 5 more albums. Stryper. As much as I love Stryper, and I played this album a lot, they would shortly break up after this point. Man, that kills me to not have Stryper on this list. Like, really. Like, huge Stryper fan right now. They have a new album that's getting ready to come out end of days. And I haven't pre-ordered that album yet. Nelson. Oh, this. Whose idea was it to do a 9 on this show? Seriously? Can we just say these are the albums that... And we just... I said I was going to do 9. Trickster. Here. I love this album. Wow. Wow. Okay. That's going away. I've got to pull 2 albums from this stack to be over into the 9. Being Main Attraction, Nelson, Slaughter, Britney Fox, Petra, and Stryper. Man, it pains me to put Britney Fox back. I feel like Ferris Bueller. Okay, I'll go. This is like having a 30-minute cassette tape and really trying to get this to pair just right. Albums that say that these are the ones that I listened through my high school years and were important to me. Nelson and Brittany Fox are going to go. I just bought last year Slaughter's box set for Fear No Evil. Well, the year prior, but a year ago, The Wildlife, of autographed by the band on vinyl. I'll show that at some point. It's back over here. I feel like this needs to go. I have such reverence for this album. I think White Lion's going to make it. Wow, I'm not going to put Slaughter or Petra in there. Let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, here is the... What was that?
Welcome to the 9. You may only choose 9 to move forward. No more, no less. The 9 is here.
Okay, if you're new to the channel, like what we like to do on Right Between the Eyes, and now we'll do here on this show, we're going to whittle our list down from 10 to 9. The 10th album would have been Petra, Unseen Power. It pains me that Stryper and Petra did not make this list. They were so close. Petra was on the edge, but we cut one away, and now we are left with the 9 albums, my 9 favorite albums that got me through high school. And here they are, from 9 to 1. Okay, coming in at number 9, we have Slaughter, The Wildlife. You saw me lament about it if I kept it in, the whole thing. I love this album. Love it. I've got the box set for it. That should say an autographed version of this album. Absolutely love this album. The first CD I ever owned at number 8, White Lion, Main Attraction. Again, such a great album. Number 7, House of Lords. I love this album that much. You need to go check this album out. Do yourself a favor. Because I'm counting them as 2, because it's my podcast, Guns N' Roses, Use Your Illusion. It was the number 1 requested album on Dial MTV on New Year's Eve. They were playing in Tokyo. We got to see You Could Be Mine live in Tokyo. The hours, the riots, and the fighting that happened because of this album. All thanks to Axl. There we go. Number 6, Use Your Illusion 1 and 2. Coming in at our top 5, Def Leppard, Adrenalized. Again, all these, you know. Coming in at number 4, Jam, Michael Jackson. Cracks the top 5. Again, anybody that knew me back in 1990, whatever you want to say, 89, 88, 87, I was a big, huge Michael Jackson fan. He had to make the list. The top 3, Van Halen. 4, Unlawful Carnal Knowledge. If you acronym it, you know why they called this album that. Again. Number 2, Bon Jovi, Keep the Faith. This was one that I just played, like I said, over and over and over. And number 1, numero uno, Kiss, Revenge. That is going to do it for me. That is the 9 albums pared down from 51. And if you stayed this long, thank you very much. You can follow all the social medias that hopefully I have scrolling through here. If not, we're on Facebook at facebook.com/Rogue Record Music. Thanks for watching. And the next episode might be an album review, might be another 9 list, but it won't be this big mammoth episode that I just did. I'm going to have to try and whittle this down to an hour. I wonder if I can cut a half hour out of this. Hopefully I can. An hour and 39 minutes and 22 seconds I've been yammering here. Thanks for watching Rogue Record Music. Like, click, and subscribe in any spot, bell, notifications, all that wonderful stuff. And there'll be more of a discussion rather it being show and tell in the next episode. Not sure what the first album review is going to be. I will figure that out. Stay tuned to social medias because I'll probably announce it there before the episode's up, or at least give you a little hint so you can figure out what it'll be. So there's a lot of music from as early childhood buying Alvin and the Chipmunks up until recently buying Mike Mangini's new album, the former drummer now of Dream Theater. There's a lot of music all in between. And step back into Rogue Record Music. We'll flip through something and we'll have a discussion. See ya. Peace.